Italy, officially the Italian Republic, is a country in southern and western Europe. It is located on a peninsula that extends into the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, with the Alps on its northern land border, as well as islands, notably Sicily and Sardinia. Italy shares its borders with France, Switzerland, Austria, Slovenia, and two enclaves, Vatican City and San Marino. It is the 10th largest country in Europe, covering an area of 301,340 square kilometers, and third most populous member state of the European Union, with a population of nearly 60 million. Its capital and largest city is Rome. Other major urban areas include Milan, Naples, Turin, Florence, and Venice. In antiquity, the Italian peninsula was home to numerous peoples. The Latin city of Rome, founded as a kingdom, became a republic that conquered the Mediterranean world and ruled it for centuries as an empire. With the spread of Christianity, Rome became the seat of the Catholic Church and the papacy. During the early Middle Ages, Italy experienced the fall of the Western Roman Empire and inward migration from Germanic tribes. By the 11th century, Italian city-states and maritime republics expanded, bringing renewed prosperity through commerce and laying the groundwork for modern capitalism. The Italian Renaissance flourished during the 15th and 16th centuries and spread to the rest of Europe. Italian explorers discovered new routes to the Far East and the New World, leading the European Age of Discovery. However, centuries of rivalry and infighting between city-states left the peninsula divided. During the 17th and 18th centuries, Italian economic importance waned significantly. After centuries of political and territorial divisions, Italy was almost entirely unified in 1861, following wars of independence and the Expedition of the Thousand, establishing the Kingdom of Italy. From the late 19th to the early 20th century, Italy rapidly industrialized, mainly in the north, and acquired a colonial empire, while the south remained largely impoverished, fueling a large immigrant diaspora to the Americas. From 1915 to 1918, Italy took part in World War I with the Entente against the Central Powers. In 1922, the Italian fascist dictatorship was established. During World War II, Italy was first part of the Axis until its surrender to the Allied powers, then a co-belligerent of the Allies during the Italian resistance and the liberation of Italy. Following the war, the monarchy was replaced by a republic and the country enjoyed a strong recovery. Italy has the 8th largest nominal GDP in the world, the 2nd largest manufacturing industry in Europe, and a significant role in regional and global economic, military, cultural, and diplomatic affairs. A developed country, ranking 30th in the Human Development Index, Italy is a founding and leading member of the European Union, and in numerous international institutions, including NATO, the G7, the Mediterranean Union, and the Latin Union. As a cultural superpower, Italy has long been a renowned center of art, music, literature, cuisine, fashion, science, and technology, and the source of multiple inventions and discoveries. It has the most World Heritage Sites, and is the 5th most visited country. Name. One theory suggests it originated from an ancient Greek term for the land of the Italoi, a tribe that resided in the region now known as Calabria. Originally thought to be named Viculi, some scholars suggest their totemic animal to be the calf. Several ancient authors said it was named after a local ruler Italus. The ancient Greek term for Italy initially referred only to the south of the Bruttium Peninsula and parts of Catanzaro and Vibo Valentia. The larger concept of Enatria and Italy became synonymous, and the name applied to most of Lucania as well. Before the Roman Republic's expansion, the name was used by Greeks for the land between the Strait of Messina and the line connecting the Gulfs of Salerno and Taranto, corresponding to Calabria. the Greeks came to apply Italia to a larger region. In addition to the Greek Italy in the south, historians have suggested the existence of an Etruscan Italy, which consisted of areas of central Italy. The borders of Roman Italy, Italia, are better established. Cato's Origins describes Italy as the entire peninsula south of the Alps. In 264 BC, Roman Italy extended from the Arno and Rubicon rivers of the center north to the entire south. The northern area, Cisalpine Gaul, considered geographically part of Italy, was occupied by Rome in the 220s BC, but remained politically separated. It was legally merged into the administrative unit of Italy in 42 BC. Sardinia, Corsica, Sicily, and Malta were added to Italy by Diocletian in 292 AD, which made late ancient Italy coterminous with the modern Italian geographical region. All its inhabitants were considered Italic and Roman. The Latin Italicus was used to describe a man of Italy as opposed to a provincial, or one from the Roman province. The adjective Italianus, from which Italian was derived, is from medieval Latin and was used alternatively with Italicus during the early modern period. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the Ostrogothic Kingdom of Italy was created. After the Lombard invasions, Italia was retained as the name for their kingdom, and its successor kingdom within the Holy Roman Empire. History. Prehistory and Antiquity. The ancient peoples of pre-Roman Italy were Indo-European, specifically the Italic peoples. The main historic peoples of possible non-Indo-European or pre-Indo-European heritage include the Etruscans, the Elymians and Sicani of Sicily, and the prehistoric Sardinians, who gave birth to the Nuragic civilization. Other ancient populations include the Rhaetian people and Comani, known for their rock drawings in Val Camonica. A natural mummy, Etsi, dated 3400 to 3100 BC, was discovered in the Semi-Long Glacier in 1991. The first colonizers were the Phoenicians, who established emporiums on the coasts of Sicily and Sardinia. Some became small urban centers and developed parallel to Greek colonies. Between the 17th and 11th centuries BC, Mycenaean Greeks established contacts with Italy. During the 8th and 7th centuries, Greek colonies were established at Pithecusae, eventually extending along the south of the Italian peninsula and the coast of Sicily, an area later known as Magna Graecia. Ionians, Doric colonists, Syracusans, and the Achaeans founded various cities. Greek colonization placed the Italic peoples in contact with democratic forms of government and high artistic and cultural expressions. Ancient Rome. Ancient Rome, a settlement on the river Tiber in central Italy, founded in 753 BC, was ruled for 244 years by a monarchical system. In 509 BC, the Romans, favoring a government of the Senate and the people, expelled the monarchy and established an oligarchic republic. The Italian peninsula, named Italia, was consolidated into a unified entity during Roman expansion, the conquest of new territories often at the expense of the other Italic tribes, Etruscans, Celts, and Greeks. A permanent association, with most of the local tribes and cities, was formed, and Rome began the conquest of Western Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. In the wake of Julius Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, Rome grew into a massive empire stretching from Britain to the borders of Persia, engulfing the whole Mediterranean basin, in which Greek, Roman, and other cultures merged into a powerful civilization. The long reign of the first emperor, Augustus, began an age of peace and prosperity. Roman Italy remained the metropole of the empire, homeland of the Romans and territory of the capital. The Roman Empire was among the largest in history, wielding great economical, cultural, political, and military power. At its greatest extent, it had an area of 5 million square kilometers. The Roman legacy has deeply influenced Western civilization, shaping the modern world. The widespread use of Romance languages derived from Latin, numerical system, modern Western alphabet and calendar, and the emergence of Christianity as a world religion, are among the many legacies of Roman dominance. Middle Ages. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Italy fell under the Odoacer's kingdom, and was seized by the Ostrogoths. Invasions resulted in a chaotic succession of kingdoms and the supposed Dark Ages. The invasion of another Germanic tribe in the 6th century, the Lombards, reduced Byzantine presence and ended political unity of the peninsula for the next 1,300 years. The north formed the Lombard Kingdom, central south was also controlled by the Lombards, and other parts remained Byzantine. The Lombard Kingdom was absorbed into Francia by Charlemagne in the late 8th century and became the Kingdom of Italy. The Franks helped form the Papal States. Until the 13th century, politics was dominated by relations between the Holy Roman Emperors and the papacy, with city-states siding with the former or with the latter for momentary advantage. The Germanic Emperor and Roman Pontiff became the universal powers of medieval Europe. However, conflict over the investiture controversy and between Guelphs and Ghibellines ended the imperial feudal system in the north, where cities gained independence. In 1176, the Lombard League of City-States defeated Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa, ensuring their independence. City-states, for example Milan, Florence, and Venice, played a crucially innovative role in financial development by devising banking practices, and enabling new forms of social organization. In coastal and southern areas, maritime republics dominated the Mediterranean and monopolized trade to the Orient. They were independent thalassocratic city-states, in which merchants had considerable power. Although oligarchical, the relative political freedom they afforded was conducive to academic and artistic advancement. The best-known maritime republics were Venice, Genoa, Pisa, and Amalfi. Each had dominion over overseas lands, islands, lands on the Adriatic, Aegean, and Black Seas, and commercial colonies in the Near East and North Africa. Venice and Genoa were Europe's gateways to the East, and producers of fine glass, while Florence was a center of silk, wool, banking, and jewelry. The wealth generated meant large public and private artistic projects could be commissioned. The republics participated in the Crusades, providing support, transport, but mostly taking political and trading opportunities. Italy first felt the economic changes which led to the commercial revolution. Venice was able to sack Byzantine's capital and finance Marco Polo's voyages to Asia. The first universities were formed in Italian cities, and scholars such as Aquinas obtained international fame. Capitalism and banking families emerged in Florence, where Dante and Giotto were active around 1300. Southern Italy was divided between the Kingdom of Sicily and Kingdom of Naples. The Black Death of 1348 killed perhaps a third of Italy's population. Early modern period. Italy was the birthplace and heart of the Renaissance during the 1400s. It marked the transition from the medieval period to the modern age. Italian polities were now regional states effectively ruled by princes, in control of trade and administration, and their courts became centers of the arts and sciences. The Italian princedoms represented the first modern states, as opposed to feudal monarchies and empires. The princedoms were led by political dynasties and merchant families, such as the Medici in Florence. The Renaissance was fostered by the wealth accumulated by merchant cities and patronage of its dominant families. The Italian Renaissance exercised a dominant influence on European art for centuries, with artists such as Leonardo da Vinci, Botticelli, Michelangelo, Raphael, Giotto, Donatello, and Titian, and architects such as Filippo Brunelleschi, Andrea Palladio, and Donato Bramante. After the end of the Western Schism, newly elected Pope Martin V returned to the Papal States and restored Italy as the sole center of Western Christianity. The Medici Bank was made the credit institution of the papacy, and significant ties were established between the Church and new political dynasties. The Pope's status as elective monarchs turned conclaves and consistories into political battles, between the courts for primacy and access to the immense resources of the Church. In 1453, Pope Nicholas V sent forces were to defend Constantinople, but it was lost to the more advanced Ottomans. This led to the migration of Greek scholars and texts to Italy, fueling the rediscovery of Greek humanism. Humanist rulers such as Federico da Montefeltro and Pope Pius II worked to establish ideal cities, founding Urbino and Pienza. Pico della Mirandola wrote the Oration on the Dignity of Man, considered the manifesto of the Renaissance. Constantinople's fall also led to the Age of Discovery. Italian explorers and navigators from the maritime republics, eager to find an alternative route to the Indies to bypass the Ottomans, offered their services to monarchs of Atlantic countries and played a key role in ushering colonization of the Americas. The most notable were Christopher Columbus, who opened the Americas for conquest by Europeans, John Cabot, the first European to explore North America since the Norse, and Amerigo Vespucci, who demonstrated the New World was not Asia in around 1501. America is named after him. A defensive alliance known as the Italic League was formed between Venice, Naples, Florence, Milan, and the papacy. Lorenzo the Magnificent de' Medici was the Renaissance's greatest patron. His support allowed the League to abort invasion by the Turks. However, the military campaign of Charles VIII of France resulted in the Italian Wars. During the High Renaissance of the 1500s, Italy was the main European battleground as well as its cultural economic center. Popes such as Julius II fought for control of Italy against foreign monarchs. Paul III preferred to mediate between the European powers to secure peace. In the middle of this conflict, the Medici popes Leo X and Clement VII opposed the Reformation and advanced their family interests. In 1559, after the Italian Wars, much of North Italy remained in the Holy Roman Empire, while southern Italy was under Spanish Habsburg rule. The papacy remained powerful and launched the Counter-Reformation. Key events include the Council of Trent, adoption of the Gregorian calendar, the Jesuit China mission, the French Wars of Religion, end of the 30 Years' War, and the Great Turkish War. The economy declined in the 1600s and 1700s. Following the European Wars of Succession of the 18th century, the north fell under the influence of Austria, while the south passed to the Spanish Bourbons. During the Napoleonic Wars, North and Central Italy were reorganized as sister republics of France and, later, as a Kingdom of Italy. The South was administered by Joachim Murat, Napoleon's brother-in-law. 1814's Congress of Vienna restored the situation of the late 18th century, but the ideals of the French Revolution could not be eradicated, and resurfaced during the political upheavals that characterized the early 19th century. The first adoption of the tricolored by an Italian state, the Cispadane Republic, occurred during Napoleonic Italy, following the French Revolution, which advocated national self-determination. This event is celebrated by Tricolor's Day. Unification. The birth of the Kingdom of Italy was the result of efforts of Italian nationalists and monarchists loyal to the House of Savoy to establish a united kingdom encompassing the entire Italian peninsula. By the mid-19th century, rising Italian nationalism led to revolution. Following the Congress of Vienna in 1815, the political and social Italian unification movement, or Risorgimento, emerged to unite Italy by consolidating the states and liberating them from foreign control. A radical figure was the patriotic journalist Giuseppe Mazzini, founder of the political movement Young Italy in the 1830s, who favored a unitary republic and advocated a broad nationalist movement. 1847 saw the first public performance of Il Canto degli Italiani, which became the national anthem in 1946. The most famous member of Young Italy was the revolutionary and General Giuseppe Garibaldi, who led the Republican drive for unification in southern Italy. However, the Italian monarchy of the House of Savoy, in the Kingdom of Sardinia, whose government was led by Camillo Benso, Count of Cavour, also had ambitions of establishing a united Italian state. In the context of the 1848 liberal revolutions that swept Europe, an unsuccessful First Italian War of Independence was declared against Austria. In 1855, Sardinia became an ally of Britain and France in the Crimean War. Sardinia fought the Austrian Empire in the Second Italian War of Independence of 1859, with the aid of France, resulting in liberating Lombardy. On the basis of the Plombiers Agreement, the Sardinia ceded Savoy and Nice to France, an event that caused the Nicard Exodus. In 1860–61, Garibaldi led the drive for unification in Naples and Sicily. Teano was the site of a famous meeting between Garibaldi and Victor Emmanuel II, the last king of Sardinia, during which Garibaldi shook Victor Emmanuel's hand and hailed him as King of Italy. Cavour agreed to include Garibaldi's southern Italy in a union with the Kingdom of Sardinia in 1860. This allowed the Sardinian government to declare a united Italian kingdom on March 17, 1861. Victor Emmanuel II became its first king and its capital was moved from Turin to Florence. In 1866, Victor Emmanuel II, allied with Prussia during the Austro-Prussian War, waged the Third Italian War of Independence, which resulted in Italy annexing Venetia. Finally, in 1870, as France abandoned Rome during the Franco-Prussian War, the Italians captured the Papal States, unification was completed, and the capital moved to Rome. Liberal period. Sardinia's constitution was extended to all of Italy in 1861, and provided basic freedoms for the new state, but electoral laws excluded the non-propertied classes. The new kingdom was governed by a parliamentary constitutional monarchy dominated by liberals. As northern Italy quickly industrialized, southern and northern rural areas remained underdeveloped and overpopulated, forcing millions to migrate and fueling a large and influential diaspora. The Italian Socialist Party increased in strength, challenging the traditional liberal and conservative establishment. In the last 2 decades of the 19th century, Italy developed into a colonial power by subjugating Eritrea, Somalia, Tripolitania, and Cyrenaica in Africa. In 1913, male universal suffrage was adopted. The pre-World War I period was dominated by Giovanni Giolitti, Prime Minister 5 times between 1892 and 1921. Italy entered into the First World War in 1915 with the aim of completing national unity, so it is also considered the Fourth Italian War of Independence, from a historiographical perspective, as the conclusion of the unification of Italy. Italy, nominally allied with German and the Austro-Hungarian empires in the Triple Alliance, in 1915 joined the Allies, entering World War I with the promise of substantial territorial gains that included West Inner Carniola, the former Austrian littoral, and Dalmatia, as well as parts of the Ottoman Empire. The country's contribution to the Allied victory earned it a place as one of the Big Four powers. Reorganization of the army and conscription led to Italian victories. In October 1918, the Italians launched a massive offensive, culminating in victory at the Battle of Vittorio Veneto. This marked the end of war on the Italian front, secured dissolution of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and was instrumental in ending the war less than 2 weeks later. During the war, more than 650,000 Italian soldiers and as many civilians died, and the kingdom was on the brink of bankruptcy. The Treaty of Saint-Germain-en-Laye and Treaty of Rapallo allowed for annexation of Trentino Alto Adige, the Julian March, Istria, the Kvarner Gulf and the Dalmatian city of Zara. The subsequent Treaty of Rome led to annexation of Fiume by Italy. Italy did not receive other territories promised by the Treaty of London, so this outcome was denounced as a mutilated victory by Benito Mussolini, which helped lead to the rise of Italian fascism, and became key in the propaganda of fascist Italy. Historians regard mutilated victory as a political myth, used by fascists to fuel Italian imperialism. Italy gained a permanent seat in the League of Nations' Executive Council. Fascist regime and World War II. The socialist agitations that followed the devastation of the Great War, inspired by the Russian Revolution, led to counter-revolution and repression throughout Italy. The liberal establishment, fearing a Soviet-style revolution, started to endorse the small National Fascist Party, led by Mussolini. In October 1922, the Black Shirts of the National Fascist Party organized a mass demonstration and the March on Rome coup. King Victor Emmanuel III appointed Mussolini as prime minister, transferring power to the fascists without armed conflict. Mussolini banned political parties and curtailed personal liberties, establishing a dictatorship. These actions attracted international attention and inspired similar dictatorships in Nazi Germany and Francoist Spain. Fascism was based upon Italian nationalism and imperialism, seeking to expand Italian possessions via irredentist claims based on the legacy of the Roman and Venetian empires. For this reason the fascists engaged in interventionist foreign policy. In 1935, Mussolini invaded Ethiopia and founded Italian East Africa, resulting in international isolation and leading to Italy's withdrawal from the League of Nations. Italy then allied with Nazi Germany and the Empire of Japan, and strongly supported Francisco Franco in the Spanish Civil War. In 1939, Italy annexed Albania. Italy entered World War II on June 10, 1940. At different times, Italians advanced in British Somaliland, Egypt, the Balkans, and Eastern fronts. They were, however, defeated on the Eastern Front as well as in the East African and North African campaigns, losing their territories in Africa and the Balkans. Italian war crimes included extrajudicial killings and ethnic cleansing by deportation of about 25,000 people, mainly Yugoslavs, to Italian concentration camps and elsewhere. Yugoslav partisans perpetrated their own crimes against the ethnic Italian population during and after the war, including the Foibe massacres. In Italy and Yugoslavia few war crimes were prosecuted. An Allied invasion of Sicily began in July 1943, leading to the collapse of the fascist regime on July 25. Mussolini was deposed and arrested by order of King Victor Emmanuel III. On September 8, Italy signed the Armistice of Cassibile, ending its war with the Allies. The Germans, with the assistance of Italian fascists, succeeded in taking control of north and central Italy. The country remained a battlefield, with the Allies moving up from the south. In the north, the Germans set up the Italian Social Republic, a Nazi puppet state and collaborationist regime with Mussolini installed as leader after he was rescued by German paratroopers. What remained of the Italian troops was organized into the Italian co-belligerent army, which fought alongside the Allies, while other Italian forces, loyal to Mussolini, opted to fight alongside the Germans in the National Republican Army. German troops, with RSI collaboration, committed massacres and deported thousands of Jews to death camps. The post-armistice period saw the emergence of the Italian resistance, who fought a guerrilla war against the Nazi German occupiers and collaborators. This has been described as an Italian civil war due to fighting between partisans and fascist RSI forces. In April 1945, with defeat looming, Mussolini attempted to escape north, but was captured and summarily executed near Lake Como by partisans. Hostilities ended on April 29, 1945, when the German forces in Italy surrendered. Nearly 500,000 Italians died in the conflict, society was divided, and the economy all but destroyed. Per capita income in 1944 was at its lowest point since 1900. The aftermath left Italy angry with the monarchy for its endorsement of the fascist regime. These frustrations contributed to a revival of Italian republicanism. Republican era. Italy became a republic after the 1946 Italian institutional referendum held on June 2, a day celebrated since as Festa della Repubblica. This was the first time women voted nationally. Victor Emmanuel II's son, Umberto II, was forced to abdicate. The Republican Constitution was approved in 1948. Under the Treaty of Paris between Italy and the Allied powers, areas next to the Adriatic Sea were annexed by Yugoslavia, resulting in the Istrian-Dalmatian exodus, which involved the emigration of around 300,000 Istrian and Dalmatian Italians. Italy lost all colonial possessions, ending the Italian Empire. Italy's border today has existed since 1975, when Trieste was formally re-annexed to Italy. Fears of a communist takeover proved crucial in 1948, when the Christian Democrats, under Alcide de Gasperi, won a landslide victory. Consequently, in 1949 Italy became a member of NATO. The Marshall Plan revived the economy, which, until the late 1960s, enjoyed a period called the economic miracle. In the 1950s, Italy became a founding country of the European Communities, a forerunner of the European Union. From the late 1960s until the early 80s, the country experienced the years of lead, characterized by economic difficulties, especially after the 1973 oil crisis, social conflicts, and terrorist massacres. In the 1980s, two governments were led by non-Christian Democrat premiers, one Republican and one socialist. The Christian Democrats remained, however, the main government party. The economy recovered and Italy became the world's fifth largest industrial nation after it gained entry into the G7 in the 1970s. However, national debt skyrocketed past 100% of GDP. Between 1992 to 93, Italy faced terror attacks perpetrated by the Sicilian Mafia as a consequence of new anti-mafia measures by the government. A year later, tourist spots were attacked, leaving 10 dead. The church condemned the mafia and an anti-mafia priest was shot dead in Rome. Voters, disenchanted with political paralysis, massive public debt and extensive corruption uncovered by the Clean Hands investigation, demanded radical reform. The scandals involved all major parties, but especially those in the coalition. The Christian Democrats, who had ruled for almost 50 years, underwent a crisis and disbanded, splitting into factions. The Communists reorganized as a social democratic force. During the 1990s and 2000s, center-right dominated by media magnate Silvio Berlusconi and center-left coalitions led by Professor Romano Prodi alternately governed. In 2011, amidst the Great Recession, Berlusconi resigned and was replaced by the technocratic cabinet of Mario Monti. In 2014, PD Matteo Renzi became prime minister and the government started constitutional reform. This was rejected in a 2016 referendum and Paolo Gentiloni became prime minister. During the European migrant crisis of the 2010s, Italy was the entry point and leading destination for most asylum seekers entering the EU. Between 2013 to 18, it took in over 700,000 migrants, mainly from sub-Saharan Africa, which put a strain on the public purse and led to a surge in support for far-right or Eurosceptic parties. The 2018 general election was characterized by a strong showing of the Five Star Movement and Lega. Giuseppe Conte became prime minister of a populist coalition. After only 14 months, the League withdrew its support from Conte, who formed a new coalition of the Five Star Movement and the center-left. In 2020, Italy was severely hit by COVID. With more than 155,000 victims, Italy was one of the countries with the most deaths in the pandemic and one of the most affected economically. In February 2021, after a government crisis, Conte was forced to resign. Mario Draghi, former president of the European Central Bank, formed a national unity government supported by most main parties, pledging to implement an economic stimulus to face the crisis caused by the pandemic. In 2022, Giorgia Meloni was sworn in as Italy's first female prime minister. Her Brothers of Italy party formed a right-wing government with the far-right League and Forza Italia. Geography. Italy, whose territory largely coincides with the eponymous geographical region, is located in southern. To the north, from west to east, Italy borders France, Switzerland, Austria, and Slovenia, and is roughly delimited by the Alpine watershed, enclosing the Po Valley and the Venetian Plain. It consists of the entirety of the Italian peninsula, Sicily and Sardinia, and many smaller islands. Some of Italy's territory extends beyond the Alpine basin, and some islands are located outside the Eurasian continental shelf. The country's area is 301,230 square kilometers, of which 294,020 square kilometers is land and 7,210 square kilometers is water. Including the islands, Italy has a coastline of 7,600 kilometers on the Mediterranean Sea, the Ligurian and Tyrrhenian Seas, the Ionian Sea, and the Adriatic Sea. Its border with France runs for 488 kilometers, Switzerland, 740 kilometers, Austria, 430 kilometers, and Slovenia, 232 kilometers. The sovereign states of San Marino and Vatican City are enclaves within Italy, while Campione d'Italia is an Italian exclave in Switzerland. The border with San Marino is 39 kilometers long, that with Vatican City, 3.2 kilometers. Over 35% of Italian territory is mountainous. The Apennine Mountains form the peninsula's backbone, and the Alps form most of its northern boundary, where Italy's highest point is located on the summit of Mont Blanc at 4,810 m. Other well-known mountains include the Matterhorn in the Western Alps, and the Dolomites in the Eastern Alps. Many parts of Italy are of volcanic origin. Most small islands and archipelagos in the south are volcanic islands. There are active volcanoes, Mount Etna in Sicily, Vulcano, Stromboli, and Vesuvius. Politics. Italy has been a unitary parliamentary republic since 1946, when the monarchy was abolished by a constitutional referendum. The President of Italy, Sergio Mattarella since 2015, is Italy's head of state. The President is elected for a single 7-year term by the Italian Parliament and regional voters in joint session. Italy has a written democratic constitution that resulted from a constituent assembly formed by representatives of the anti-fascist forces that contributed to the defeat of Nazi and fascist forces during the liberation of Italy, in World War II. Government. Italy has a parliamentary government based on a mixed proportional and majoritarian voting system. The parliament is perfectly bicameral, each house has the same powers. The two houses, the Chamber of Deputies meets in Palazzo Montecitorio, and the Senate of the Republic in Palazzo Madama. A peculiarity of the Italian parliament is the representation given to Italian citizens permanently living abroad. 8 deputies and 4 senators are elected in 4 distinct overseas constituencies. There are senators for life, appointed by the president for outstanding patriotic merits in the social, scientific, artistic, or literary field. Former presidents are ex officio life senators. The Prime Minister of Italy is head of government and has executive authority, but must receive a vote of approval from the Council of Ministers to execute most policies. The Prime Minister and Cabinet are appointed by the President, and confirmed by a vote of confidence in Parliament. To remain as Prime Minister, one has to pass votes of confidence. The role of Prime Minister is similar to most other parliamentary systems, but they are not authorized to dissolve Parliament. Another difference is that the political responsibility for intelligence is with the Prime Minister, who has exclusive power to coordinate intelligence policies, determine financial resources, strengthen cybersecurity, apply and protect state secrets and authorize agents to carry out operations, in Italy or abroad. The major political parties are the Brothers of Italy, Democratic Party, and Five Star Movement. During the 2022 general election, these three and their coalitions won 357 of the 400 seats in the Chamber of Deputies, and 187 of 200 in the Senate. The center-right coalition, which included Giorgia Meloni's Brothers of Italy, Matteo Salvini's League, Silvio Berlusconi's Forza Italia, and Maurizio Lupi's Us Moderates, won most seats in Parliament. The rest were taken by the center-left coalition, which included the Democratic Party, the Greens, and Left Alliance, Aosta Valley, More Europe, Civic Commitment, the Five Star Movement, Action, Italia Viva, South Tyrolean People's Party, South Calls North, and the Associative Movement of Italians Abroad. Foreign relations. Italy is a founding member of the European Economic Community, now the European Union, and of NATO. Italy was admitted to the United Nations in 1955, and is a member and strong supporter of international organizations, such as the OECD, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, World Trade Organization, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the Council of Europe, and the Central European Initiative. Its turns in the rotating presidencies of international organizations include the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe in 2018, G7 in 2017, and the EU Council in 2014. Italy is a recurrent non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. Italy strongly supports multilateral international politics, endorsing the UN and its international security activities. In 2013, Italy had 5,296 troops deployed abroad, engaged in 33 UN and NATO missions in 25 countries. Italy deployed troops in support of UN peacekeeping missions in Somalia, Mozambique, and East Timor. Italy provides support for NATO and UN operations in Bosnia, Kosovo, and Albania, and deployed over 2,000 troops to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom from 2003. Military. The Italian Army, Navy, Air Force, and Carabinieri collectively form the Italian Armed Forces, under the command of the High Council of Defense, presided over by the President, per the Constitution of Italy. According to Article 78, the Parliament has the authority to declare a state of war and vest the necessary war-making powers in the government. Despite not being a branch of the armed forces, the Guardia di Finanza has military status and is organized along military lines. Since 2005, military service has been voluntary. In 2010, the Italian military had 293,202 personnel on active duty, of which 114,778 are Carabinieri. As part of NATO's nuclear sharing strategy, Italy hosts 90 USB-61 nuclear bombs located at the Ghedi and Aviano air bases. The Army is the National Ground Defense Force. It was formed in 1946, when Italy became a republic, from what remained of the Royal Italian Army. Its best-known combat vehicles are the Dardo infantry fighting vehicle, the B-1 Centauro tank destroyer, and the Ariete tank, and among its aircraft are the MAN-USTA attack helicopter, deployed on EU, NATO, and UN missions. It has at its disposal Leopard 1 and M113 armored vehicles. The Italian Navy is a blue water navy. It was also formed in 1946 from what remained of the Regia Marina. The Navy, being a member of the EU and NATO, has taken part in coalition peacekeeping operations around the world. In 2014, the Navy operated 154 vessels in service, including minor auxiliary vessels. The Italian Air Force was founded as an independent service arm in 1923 by King Victor Emmanuel III as the Royal Air Force. After World War II, it was renamed as the Regia Aeronautica. In 2021, the Italian Air Force operated 219 combat jets. A transport capability is guaranteed by a fleet of 27 C-130JS and C-27J Spartan. The acrobatic display team is the Tricolor Aeros. An autonomous corps of the military, the Carabinieri are the gendarmerie and military police of Italy, policing the military and civilian population alongside Italy's other police forces. While different branches of the Carabinieri report to separate ministries, the Corps reports to the Ministry of Internal Affairs when maintaining public order and security. Languages. Italy's official language is Italian. There are an estimated 64 million native Italian speakers around the world, and another 21 million use it as a second language. Italian is often natively spoken as a regional dialect, not to be confused with Italy's regional and minority languages. However, during the 20th century, the establishment of a national education system led to a decrease in regional dialects. Standardization was further expanded in the 1950s and 1960s, due to economic growth and the rise of mass media and television. 12 historical minority languages are formally recognized: Albanian, Catalan, German, Greek, Slovene, Croatian, French, Franco-Provençal, Friulian, Ladin, Occitan, and Sardinian. 4 of these enjoy co-official status in their respective regions: French in the Aosta Valley, German in South Tyrol, and Ladin as well in some parts of the same province and in parts of the neighboring Trentino, and Slovene in the provinces of Trieste, Gorizia, and Udine. Other ethnologies, ISO, and UNESCO languages are not recognized under Italian law. Like France, Italy has signed the European Charter for Regional or Minority Languages, but has not ratified it. Due to recent immigration, Italy has sizable populations whose native language is not Italian, nor a regional language. According to the Italian National Institute of Statistics, Romanian is the most common mother tongue among foreign residents. Almost 800,000 people speak Romanian as their first language. Other prevalent mother tongues are Arabic, Albanian, and Spanish. Religion. The Holy See, the episcopal jurisdiction of Rome, contains the government of the Catholic Church. It is recognized as a sovereign entity, headed by the Pope, who is also the Bishop of Rome, with which diplomatic relations can be maintained. Often incorrectly referred to as the Vatican, the Holy See is not the same, it is the jurisdiction of the Pope, whilst the Vatican is a city-state. Although historically dominated by Catholicism, religiosity in Italy is declining. Most Catholics are nominal. The Associated Press describes Italian Catholicism as a faith that's nominally embraced but rarely lived. Italy has the world's fifth largest Catholic population and the largest in Europe. Since 1985, Catholicism is no longer the official religion. In 2011, minority Christian faiths included an estimated 1.5 million Orthodox Christians. Protestantism has been growing. Italy has for centuries welcomed Jews expelled from other countries, notably Spain. However, about 20% of Italian Jews were killed during the Holocaust. This, together with emigration before and after World War II, has left around 28,000 Jews. There are 120,000 Hindus and 70,000 Sikhs. The state devolves shares of income tax to recognized religious communities, under a regime known as aid per thousand. Donations are allowed to Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, and Hindu communities. However, Islam remains excluded, as no Muslim communities have signed a concordat. Taxpayers who do not wish to fund a religion contribute their share to the welfare system. Culture. Italy is one of the birthplaces of Western culture and a cultural superpower. Divided by politics until its unification in 1861, Italy's culture has been shaped by a multitude of regional customs and local centers of power and patronage. Italy has had a central role in culture for millennia and is recognized for its cultural traditions and artists. During the Middle Ages, courts competed to attract artists and scholars, thus producing a legacy of monuments, paintings, music, and literature. Italy has made a substantial contribution to the cultural and historical heritage of Europe. Philosophy. Italian philosophy had an influence on Western philosophy, beginning with the Greeks and Romans, and Renaissance humanism, the Age of Enlightenment, and modern philosophy. Formal philosophy was introduced to Italy by Pythagoras, founder of the Italian school of philosophy in Crotone. Italian philosophers of the Greek period include Xenophanes, Parmenides, and Zeno. Roman philosophers include Cicero, Lucretius, Seneca the Younger, Plutarch, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius and Augustine of Hippo. Italian medieval philosophy was mainly Christian, and included theologians such as Thomas Aquinas, a classical proponent of natural theology, who reintroduced Aristotelian philosophy to Christianity. Renaissance philosophers include Giordano Bruno, a major scientific figure of the West, Marsilio Ficino, a humanist philosopher, and Niccolò Machiavelli, a founder of modern political science. Machiavelli's most famous work is The Prince, whose contribution to political thought is the fundamental break between political idealism and realism. University cities such as Padua, Bologna, and Naples remain centers of scholarship, with philosophers such as Giambattista Vico. Cesare Beccaria was a significant Enlightenment figure and a father of classical criminal theory and penology. Beccaria wrote on crimes and punishments, a treatise that served as an early condemnation of torture and the death penalty. Italy had a renowned philosophical movement in the 1800s, with idealism, sensism, and empiricism. During the late 19th and 20th centuries, there were other movements that gained popularity, such as ontologism, anarchism, communism, socialism, futurism, fascism, and Christian democracy. Antonio Gramsci remains a relevant philosopher within communist theory, credited with creating the theory of cultural hegemony. Italian philosophers were influential in development of the non-Marxist liberal socialism philosophy. In the 1960s, left-wing activists adopted the anti-authoritarian pro-working class theories that became known as autonomism and workerism. Italian feminists include Sibilla Aleramo, Adelaide Guilberta Beccari, and Anna Maria Mozzoni, and proto-feminist philosophies had previously been touched upon by Italian writers. Italian educator Maria Montessori created the philosophy of education that bears her name. Giuseppe Peano was a founder of analytic philosophy and the contemporary philosophy of mathematics. Analytic philosophers include Carlo Penco, Gloria Arrighi, Pieranna Garabaso, and Luciano Floridi. Fashion and design. Italian fashion has a long tradition. Top global fashion capital rankings by Global Language Monitor, ranked Rome 6th and Milan 12th. Major Italian fashion labels such as Gucci, Armani, Prada, Versace, Valentino, Dolce & Gabbana are among the finest fashion houses in the world. Jewelers such as Bulgari, Damiani, and Buxeleti were founded in Italy. The fashion magazine Vogue Italia is one of the most prestigious fashion magazines in the world. Italy is prominent in the field of design, notably interior, architectural, industrial, and urban designs. The country has produced well-known furniture designers, and Italian phrases such as bel disegno and linea italiana have entered the vocabulary of furniture design. Examples of classic pieces of Italian white goods and pieces of furniture include Zanussi's washing machines and refrigerators, and the new tone sofas by Atrium. Milan and Turin are the nation's leaders in architectural and industrial design. The city of Milan hosts Fiera Milano, Europe's largest design fair. Milan hosts major design and architecture-related events and venues, such as the Fuori Salone and the Milan Furniture Fair, and has been home to the designers Bruno Muneri, Lucio Fontana, Enrico Castellani, and Piero Manzoni.